Hi, welcome to episode number 6 of Refreshing Habits with Donna. And today's episode, I bring to you another guest. And really excited about this conversation that we are both going to have because it's about working in the industry. We are going to delve into a little bit on body image, a little bit about orthorexia and disordered way of eating. So if this isn't for you, this is just a little warning to say it might be little bit triggering. So just be aware of that as we go into this conversation. As always, the conversation is going to be very much free-flowing, unedited. And today I am having a conversation with Yasmine, and that Yasmine is from Say Fitness. She's been a personal trainer for many, many years, very similar journey to me. And I am just going to let Yasmine speak and take over. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Donna, and it's lovely to chat with you today.
How are you?
I'm good, thanks. I was just thinking, like, when you and I first met, which I think it was, it must have been 3 or 4 years ago now, or maybe even a bit longer, when we met at a business workshop. And yeah, we kept in touch ever since. And it's lovely now that you've launched your podcast and I can be one of your first guests on it.
I know, and on our social media, we kind of stay in contact because our stories are so similar. Like the whole kind of background, even when we touch on the hormonal cycle, we're both so passionate about it and getting the awareness out there. And it was just fascinating. So when our social media started to link, it was just like we need to have this conversation together and to get it out there. So it's absolutely amazing that you can be a guest and spread the word.
Yes, absolutely, which is all I've ever wanted to do, given both of our health histories and also our sort of knowledge as PTs and both of our passions. I think the topics we're going to talk about today are super important, and we absolutely need to open up the conversation with other people.
Yes, 100%. And also, I mean, we will touch on this, but even growing up with the education in schools and even right up to the workplace. So workplace well-being is, so many women struggle with hormonal issues, and it's just the knowledge isn't out there. So if this can help just bring some awareness about it as well. But first of all, tell everyone about what you do, who you are, a little bit of a background, and how you have kind of transitioned and gone through the journey you're on now to your business.
Right, so I'll try and keep it as short as possible. It's always difficult, isn't it?
There's a lot there, isn't there, with my my question there. There's like 5 questions in one.
So I'll try and consolidate it all into one answer. But essentially, I run my own personal training business, Say Fitness Personal Training, in the heart of West London, so Chiswick here. And I have been running it for almost 5.5 years now. So I've been a personal trainer for almost 7 years. And it came out of a career change. I had a career change at the age of 32. I, at the time, thought I was too old to have a career change, but having had a conversation with an old personal trainer of mine, he quickly put that whole worry to bed when he said to me, "Look, Yasmine, you're never too old to change career, particularly if you want to change career and become a personal trainer in the fitness industry," because he said you have one of the biggest USPs you can have in this job, which is life experience. And I totally got what he meant at that time, because essentially a lot of my clients who come to me now to train with me have the background that I had, working in the corporate world for 10 years in brand and marketing. I totally knew what they were going through. I knew about their lifestyles. I knew about the juggle that they had to, balance life, work, family life, the stresses of modern living. So it gave me the incentive and the push and the encouragement to change careers and qualify as a personal trainer. I worked in a gym. I was a personal trainer at a gym, a well-known gym chain, for 2 years, and then I decided that I wanted to make my own mark in the fitness world and start my own business. So I did that, and yeah, it's basically come next month or 2 months time, I'll have been in the industry for 7 years, and my speciality, I would say, again, sort of particularly with the clients that I train. I'm pre and postnatal trained, so I have a pre and postnatal qualification. So I do train a lot of women, but equally I train men and women of different ages in sort of functional training and strength training, mixed with Pilates and mobility.
Fantastic.
Right, so tell me a little bit about your background with your own exercise.
So I basically I've always been active. I've loved sports, loved keeping fit from a very young age. I started doing ballet, tap, and modern, I guess, sort of, the usual entry point into exercise and fitness from a young age. When my mum put me into those ballet classes and dance classes. And then, following that, I fell in love with gymnastics, which I did right up until I went to university. And then from university into my 20s, I still loved, going to the gym, keeping fit, doing the odd dance classes and so on. But ultimately, I found a love for running when I entered the working world, and in my first job. And it was just recreational, to be honest. It was just a hobby. It was just a friend who, one lunchtime in my first job, she was just like, "Oh, I go running around the river. Do you want to join me, for my lunchtime runs?" And I was like, "Why not? How can it be so, it can't be that hard." And I just didn't realize that from entering my first sort of 10K race with my colleagues in that first job, turned into quite an obsession with running, long distance running. I never ever thought that a 10K run would then end up in being a half marathon race, and then started training towards full marathons.
It's crazy, isn't it? It's like how similar our journeys are, because I was like, I didn't know that's how you got into running.
Yeah.
And I was the same. I was in a corporate job, and the office, they set up to do a 10K. And then that was it. Like literally exactly the same. Yeah.
And there you go. I thought that by finding something that I was good at, I was still going to the gym, I liked going to the gym to keep fit and everything. But I don't know, it's that competitive nature I have in me. So when I thought, oh, maybe, I can be good at this, and I can, maybe I can increase the distance, and maybe I can do a marathon one day. And so, it was a very cumulative thing. And yes, and then I started training towards marathons. Half marathon was always my favorite distance, though, because it was more sustainable, it was more manageable with working full time and fitting in the training and everything. But yeah, I just enjoyed being fit. I enjoyed the feelings I'd get from feeling sort of strong, and almost that progression I would make. I was making loads of progress in my running, but I did I have any structure to my training? I mean, I knew fairly well from reading up on it how to get better at running, but did I, Donna, know anything about proper strength training in the gym? I wasn't really lifting weights unless I was doing an exercise class. I had really no knowledge of technique and progressive overload and training systems or anything like that. I would just do the odd class in the gym. Maybe I got an induction from a PT or something, and just try to do some exercises on the machines, the weights machines in the gym. But in terms of me wondering how I could improve my running, well, surely I just run more. Unfortunately, though, that just leaded, into injuries, and I ended up getting injured quite frequently. And if I was to progress to go to marathon level, I really had to make sure that I avoided any risk of injury. And it culminated in a really bad ankle injury that I got, and where I had to basically pull out of a marathon 2 weeks before the event, which was devastating, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
When you're told by your podiatrist that if you run that marathon, you will require surgery on your ankle. And that quickly made me rethink my ways of training. I was a lot more sensible with how I approached my training from then on in. But truly, when I started learning about exercise and proper training and proper fueling for the body, was when I qualified as a personal trainer, because obviously my interest in training and exercise had peaked. And so when it came to my career change, I went, all into, for me, it's always all or nothing. If I'm changing careers, I'm going to go full on into this and devote a lot of time into trying to build this new career of mine.
Yeah. And I can resonate with that so much, because I'm exactly the same type of personality. And even like you say, with work and business, you kind of can go all in. But when it comes to the exercise, very much the same as like both stories, we went all in with our running and then we both got injured. Yeah. So it's kind of like looking back now, and me and you train now years on very intuitively how the body's feeling that day.
Yeah.
So I believe you got into like the Pilates, then you got into your strength training. Yes. And just before we move on, were you quite kind of body confident when you were running? Did you have a healthy relationship with your food?
So unbeknownst to me at the time, of course, when I look back at it now, and it's hindsight is a wonderful thing, because you really see how all the dots connect later on. And I now look back, and I had a very unhealthy relationship with running. And it was the beginnings of my overtraining and over exercising, and basically my addiction with exercise had actually stemmed from those early running days. It's just that at the time you don't acknowledge that, you don't realize that, because essentially there is no marker, there is no way of telling that is having a detrimental effect on your health and well-being. So those until you get injured, or until it culminates in some other impact on your health, you just carry on as normal, and you think, oh, of course I'm keeping healthy, because I'm training however many times a week, I'm running loads of miles, I go to the gym, but I think evidently for me, what I was doing wrong in that respect with the running was I was just using running as my training, right, as my form of exercise. Whereas, then qualifying as a PT, and then obviously as I developed an interest, it was actually in yoga first of all, before I developed an interest in Pilates. And it was finding a more holistic way of training when, physios would say, oh, maybe you need to actually do some more strength training to benefit your running, because you need to strengthen your muscles and your joints, especially that are involved with, the physical, element of running. And it was when I started incorporating all those other training methodologies that I actually never got injured again. However,
amazing, isn't it? It is just amazing that, because I was saying with the yoga, got into that, and it's kind of, I don't feel nowhere near as in pain anymore. Yes. Doing variations of strength yoga. I don't really run anymore, because I just generally don't really enjoy it. I might do the odd jog, but it's so healing for the body and for your mind, because when you fight that compulsive drive to move and exercise and kind of have to come out of that to repair your body, it is so tough. It is emotional roller coaster. Like you not being able to do your marathon 2 weeks because of your ankle injury. you know, that's a big thing for a marathon runner. It's just, it really affects the mind. So it's great that you managed to find a variation and like another kind of outlet of recovery of your body.
Yes, and you hit the nail on its head when you said that for me, it was at the time, running was an outlet for me. I was always a solo runner. I never actually enjoyed running with other people. For me, it was a release from stress, from, the daily stresses of my job, whatever it was. I suffered from depression in my early 20s, actually throughout my 20s, and this all links into body dysmorphia, which I know we're going to talk about soon. But I think it was my way of keeping my weight at a certain level, and also just for my mind. But yeah, exercising for me, yes, of course, we all know that it releases those wonderful endorphins, those happy hormones. But there were other reasons I used running as an outlet. And so after, qualifying as a PT and discovering strength training and yoga, Pilates, and other ways of training, boxing, anything, they just kind of replaced running. Because when I fell out of love with running, I did qualify as a running coach, and I still train clients, for their own running. But for me, it was almost like I was looking for a new addiction. Exercise was an addiction. I didn't admit to it at the time, but only later on, many years later, did I realize that actually I have, and I still do have, an addiction to exercise in a sense. I was just looking for a new hit. So whatever form of exercise that was, there was no one who was going to tell me that I was ever going to give up exercise, because for me, it was always my outlet.
Yeah, 100%. And it's now knowing whether we move now I still battle with it on some days. I kind of think, am I moving because I want to change my body, or am I moving because I know it's mentally going to make me feel better?
Absolutely.
And sometimes on those days, the best thing I can do is just have a rest day. And I have to fight it, because I think, actually, no, I have moved quite a bit this week. The impulsive traits can come back.
Yes.
And when you go through that journey of changing that and rewiring the brain, it's so hard to say, no, I'm actually going to do the opposite. I'll give you a quick example. I went to the gym yesterday, and I'd had probably 5 days of not going to the actual gym. I'd moved my body, just general day to day. And I felt so good. I did my 35 minutes, like a bit of strength training, a bit of kind of kettlebell stuff. And I thought, oh, I've got a busy day, but I could do another 15 minutes. And I thought, no, Donna, you don't need to do another 15 minutes. You've done what you set to do. Now go. And it was so hard, because I was like, oh, yeah, because we're fit, we've got that background where our bodies will just go. If you've been doing endurance for many, many years, there's no shut off from our body. There's like a miscommunication from our muscles and body to our brain that says, I'm worn out.
Yeah, absolutely. And the difference, now is that we have the ability, from experience, we have the ability to have that conversation with ourselves in the gym now. There is no chance that I would have ever given myself the even the option to have that conversation, Donna. I would say even 10 years ago, it would be like, no, go hard or go home. Like, my marker for a successful workout, regardless when I was doing my running training or when I started training in the gym more, I would, do 2 classes back to back. No problem. I would, put myself up against, people in the gym, be really competitive, lifting heavier weights than them, or, whatever, doing 100 more burpees than them. My marker for a successful workout was basically killing myself on the gym floor. Yeah, all of it, all of the above.
And it's so good that we didn't meet each other then.
I know, because I think we would have just spurred each other on even more, right? Because and I don't know whether at that point, this was, even though it was before I qualified as a PT, and that I could see this sort of window into this gym world, because it becomes a social thing as well. You have your friends in the gym, and together with my love for exercise, I just didn't see that addiction that I had. I would, now thinking back, holidays, Donna, were like, I had to make sure that there was a gym in every single freaking hotel that I was staying in. I would always exercise on, I can't even think of a holiday that I didn't exercise on. Holidays are supposed to be restful times. We're supposed to put on a bit of weight and everything. Oh no, not me. I would make sure that wherever I went, I could make sure that I could run, where there were running, paths or whatever that I could go on. There was a gym somewhere that I could have access to. You think, when you look back now, so many sort of social occasions that you missed because you were so like, oh no, I can't miss a gym workout. Oh, I can't miss, I've got to do an exercise to, mitigate the effects of that dinner that I'm, going to, or the mitigate the amount of alcohol that I'm going to drink on this hen do I'm going on. I mean, how miserable is that, to live a life like that?
Yeah, and it was very, very miserable, wasn't it? Like, looking back at that, very miserable. I've missed out on, like you, like so many things. And I used to go to spa days with my mum, and she used to say, oh, should we have like the scones and the cream tea? And I said, oh, no, we're on a health retreat and we can't have that. Let's have our green tea and a bit of, an apple. And looking back now, I should have bloody ate the scone,
Life's too short. And yeah, I think what's crazy to me is, even in my first job straight out of university, and you have to really almost like prove yourself a little bit, right? It's your first corporate job, and you want to make friends, and you're the newbie in the office and everything. And but the amount of times I said no to pub outings after work, or dinner outings or whatever, because I went to the frickin' gym. And I just think, actually, I made some poor choices probably, but yeah, underlying all of that was, I think, an unhealthy addiction to exercise, and unfortunately a way of basically keeping my weight at a certain level, which I guess I just didn't admit to at the time.
And this is the thing with exercise, that you've got to find that balance, because there might be some people listening to this thinking, oh yeah, but isn't it good that you done exercise rather than doing the social event where you're going to have the calories? But what we're saying is you need to have that balance. If you're training 3 times a week and you're moving your body, but I mean, we're talking about, we were probably training 3 hours a day without having the rest day, without fuel in our body. So there's this real line of how extreme it can get, and that's kind of where we're coming from, isn't it? So those occasions we were probably still training in the morning, but then still going to the gym in the afternoon, and that's just not healthy, not a good place. So tell me about the relationship with the food on this journey.
So the relationship with food, it's funny because when I look back at, when I started becoming a little bit too obsessed by running, and I obviously, with running, especially when you get into endurance running and you're training for marathons, nutrition is so important. I don't think I've ever truly had a disordered way of eating. However, for me, it's more the exercise that I use to basically manage my weight. So the problem was, and of course, and I know we're alluding to my journey with and my struggles with hypothalamic amenorrhea, but for me, the problem was the two linking together. I was never fueling properly for my lifestyle, and I say lifestyle because for me, it's all encompassing. It's not just the exercise I wasn't feeling for. I have always suffered, a little bit with anxiety. I'm quite a stressed out person generally. I have, sort of, I can get stressed out very easily. I'm, I think it's down to my perfectionist sort of nature, but I put a lot of pressure on myself. I have high expectations of myself. And I think that all comes, then crashing down on you when you apply that metric to all aspects of your life, right? So whether it's in your work or your training or your personal life or your family life, etc. And so I think, yeah, it was never just the eating on its own. I realized very quickly, and particularly when I became a PT and I was working crazy hours, taking on all the work, teaching several classes, and then doing my own training, and then going to train clients back to back. It was totally unsustainable, first of all. But of course, the problems came when I wasn't fueling properly for that
Yeah.
lifestyle. Being a PT, working a busy job, trying to maintain friendships and relationships, going out, and so on, and maintaining a family life. No wonder I was running on empty most of the time. So for me, it was never just looking at in isolation, just with the eating or just with the exercise. It was all encompassing. Unfortunately, I just only realized that one impacted the other later on when I was diagnosed with HA.
So with your going through that, when you got to that stage, were you having any like side effects? Like for me, for example, I was really struggling with my sleep. My blood sugar was all over the place. I wasn't getting the electrolytes in my water, so I was just drinking too much water without balancing out with salt. So I was getting migraines, and then the loss of menstrual cycle as well. Were you having any of those side effects?
Yes. So before I was officially diagnosed with HA, everything was masked by the contraceptive pill. So
oh my goodness.
So my HA was masked. So of course I didn't relate anything to loss of my periods because I was still getting a periods, because it was a fake period. Of course, I didn't understand that at the time, because I didn't understand anything about the menstrual cycle. I feel almost ashamed to say that, at the time in my early 30s, how do I not know about women's health, and in particularly the importance of the menstrual cycle? But so the symptoms that I got that I thought were slightly odd, and I was like, why, for a fit and healthy female in her early 30s, why should I be suffering these health issues? And I think the first thing was my gut health. I actually thought I was suffering from Ibs syndrome for 2 years, when actually the gut health, the problems with my gut were to do with hypothalamic amenorrhea in the end. And when I recovered from hypothalamic amenorrhea, my IBS symptoms disappeared. So again, hindsight is a wonderful thing when you look at all of the issues you were struggling with. Like yourself, Donna, I was suffering from really bad sleep. I mean, it's well known that PTs don't get a lot of sleep anyway, because we work ridiculous hours. But I was so exhausted. I would do the typical PT daily routine of doing your morning clients and teaching your classes or whatever. You rush home, you have some lunch, have a quick nap, and then you return back to the gym, teaching your and training your clients up until the late hours of the day, and that just continued. That was just replicate every single day of the week, and I would be absolutely exhausted by Sunday. And I didn't realize that my adrenals were just completely knackered. A vicious cycle.
Yeah. And it's just like it's the industry. I mean, being a PT and a personal trainer is an amazing job. It's really rewarding. But when you work in a gym environment and you are first kind of starting, you get that addiction with the exercise and kind of how you look, and just it's just such a constant thing. But what I've come to realize, out of all of my personal kind of education in regards to the fitness world, and also with a lot of the gym plans and a lot of the kind of guidance I've had with my own training, just for me personally, has all been given by men. And it was very much, this is your set gym program. you need to do this lifting, you need to do this amount of cardio over 12 weeks, 8 to 12 weeks. You then need to do your job. There's no kind of knowledge of the menstrual cycle and how our bodies work. And even there's no warning signs to say, if you are feeling tired, have like these rest time, or, there was none of that education. And even when we do our personal training course, it's such an in-depth conversation, thing, they don't even touch on it. So we shouldn't feel bad that we weren't aware of it, but we can't train like that every single day of the month. And that was the massive realization for me, because the last time I lost my cycle was actually after my mum passed, so 2019, for about 3 to 4 months. So it wasn't quite extreme, and that was down to stress. And I just thought, okay, so stress has had this impact. It's not been the gym, because the gyms aren't open because we're in lockdown. This is just the impact from stress. So what we had when we were doing that, we had the stress from our lifestyle, and we had the overtraining, we had the underfueling, and the total unawareness of it. So no wonder we completely just burnt out, and our adrenals were just all over the place and just not there,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, gosh, what I know now compared to what I knew then. And you're right. I think it's so easy to, criticize ourselves for the lack of knowledge, but we never, this is why I'm a huge advocate of women's health being taught in schools. I mean, it is vital. I think I could have reversed a lot of my misfortunes and my errors of my ways, with my training and my health, over the years, if I had known a little bit more about not only women's health generally, but I'm talking all encompassing, including the contraceptive pill. Because Donna, when I went on the contraceptive pill in my teens, around the same age as I think most women generally, I think I was 17. I went on the contraceptive pill for my acne, to clear up my acne. And, my poor mum at the time, she didn't have a clue how to, we tried everything. We saw dermatologists, we saw skin specialists, we saw different doctors. And then my GP said, well, we can put Yasmine on the contraceptive pill. This is a combination pill which will sort out her skin. And I was like, brilliant. Why didn't we do this earlier? And it cleared up my skin. I thought it was the magic pill at that point. And but little did I know that you only have a fake period. It's just you just have a bleed every month, but it's not a real bleed. It is not a way to balance, in inverted commas, balance out your hormones. But I didn't know any of this, so I just stayed on that pill for a very long time. And whenever I went to my GP and said, should I take a break from the pill? Let my body have a break. No. Only when you decide you want to fall pregnant and you want to try for a baby, then that's the time. Otherwise, it's perfectly normal to stay on the pill. Unfortunately, that's the wrong information to put out there, and hence why there are many women like ourselves who end up with problems trying to conceive, for example, or just problems trying to get their periods back, and develop issues like hypothalamic amenorrhea. And if there was information and a bit of education on women's health, on the importance of the menstrual cycle, is there any reason why our menstrual cycle is our fifth vital sign? And amazing that a cycle that gives us a unique window into our overall health status. I mean, to me, it seems it just is flabbergasting that when something is wrong in our body, it is our menstrual cycle that is giving us the heads up, right? And I just think it's when you're missing your periods, for example, it's sending a sign that something is off, and that there isn't enough energy in your body and your system for that the body can actually function properly. I think it doesn't need to be a whole now something built into the curriculum, but I just think in terms of women's health, there is some very basic information that can be taught to teenagers, really.
Yeah, 100%. And even when it comes down to gut health, because like you say, like IBS is in, everyone knows about IBS, but when you relate that could actually be a hormonal issue and something else going on, you know, and even down to the sleep, down to just generally how you're feeling. Obviously, you've got your mood in there as well, and just your overall energy. You know, there's some weeks that, and also with the energy. Sorry, I'm jumping over the place. Got so much to say. With the so some weeks you might feel like you've got more energy. There's other weeks you might feel like you need to sleep, but with your diet as well, like you need to eat more food to heal your body. And this doesn't even have to be for someone who is doing that amount of exercise or living that type of lifestyle. Just the general woman, because of the diet industry, because of diet culture, they put these numbers out there, very, very low calories, and it's just has such a negative effect on the hormones, because we need to eat. And I was totally unaware of that. You know, my relationship with my food was just awful in the past, because I was like, oh, let's keep calories so low. And then I think that's part of the reason why I lost my cycle.
Yeah.
So
I think you probably relate to Donna, because I mean, this all, you know, when we look back at when we entered the fitness industry, you so badly want to fit in, right? Like we were saying, you know, you go all in, right? You make this decision in life, you have changed career. It doesn't matter what industry you enter, you're going to give it a good go, right? And you're going to go, right, I'm going to train hard, and I'm going to get loads of clients, and I'm going to fit into this industry. And unfortunately, when it comes to aesthetics, I thought, you know, like I'm sure you did, like I'm sure many new PTs, you need to look like a PT. And what does the fitness industry deem a PT to look like? Well, you know, six pack, slim, you know, looking quite lean, looking, you know, maybe a more muscular physique, depending, you know, on, you know, the kind of client you want to attract, but looking strong and fit and healthy, right? That's the look of a personal trainer. So I try to mold myself into that. And, you know, I thought that was the way, you know, so I think the food I was eating, I mean, God, when I laugh about it now, but it's I mean, it's a serious point to make, you know, that the high protein diet. Oh my gosh, Donna, I tried everything. The high protein, I probably was even doing the ketogenic diet at some point. I tried intermittent fasting, and guess what? That was absolutely the wrong road to go down for me, because I was suffering from HA at the time, unbeknownst to me at the time. But that is a massive danger for anyone going through HA or anyone going through hormonal issues. Intermittent fasting is not for every woman, and you have to be really careful how you manage intermittent fasting. So
100%.
this blanket, it was like, oh, the trend is at the moment intermittent fasting. Right, let me jump onto that. The latest protein powders that are out, or the high protein diet, or the, you know, whatever it was, I was willing to try it. And I think that's where I fell into the sort of disordered eating and the body dysmorphia trap, particularly in the early years of being a PT.
And the thing is, a lot of those diets, there is very, very limited science and background on them being tested or for women. The majority of the testing is done on men. And the media and the supplement companies and all of that, kind of the diet side of it, because women see that and they've got that desire to get that result, they will try it. Which if you see it in, you know, on social media, or you see it on the telly or magazines, etc., the general person won't know that hasn't actually been tried on a lot of women, especially women perimenopausal, you know, been through the menopause, that just so much of it is not tried on women.
Yeah.
And I never knew that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you're so right about that. And I was, yes, I've listened to a few podcasts, you know, where a lot of those research studies are only really men as the participants. And I think, you know, with intermittent fasting in particular, but even, you know, macro counting, right? And macro counting has its place because, you know, I have a level 3 nutrition qualification. And of course, for my weight loss clients, as I'm sure you use, you know, yes, you have to understand your macro and micronutrients and understanding, you know, the energy balance and all of that. I understand that. But when you take it to extremes, and, you know, I was frequently asked by friends who had done bodybuilding and had competed, you know, whether I was interested in doing that. And it was after a fitness photo shoot where I got myself to a weight that I had not been since university. And I was so low body fat. I was 14% body fat, which I personally believe is too low for a woman. So again, hence why I had no periods. But at the time I still didn't know about that because I was on the pill still. But you know, then I got into that world of, you know, macro counting, like religiously, you know, very strict, you know, on my diet. And I was miserable for 3 months. I was, my husband said I was such a grumpy cow for 3 months. But honestly, Donna, it affected me mentally. My sleep suffered. I was just miserable. I would say they were miserable 3 months getting myself into shape for that fitness photo shoot. And after that, when my friends said if I would be willing to try, you know, competing for a show, I was like, absolutely no way in hell. No way in hell. First of all, it's not something that I ever would aspire to do personally. Not, you know, no judgment to anyone that you know, that competes and does bodybuilding at all. But for me, what it took for just 3 months to then get into shape, you know, and the extremes that you have to go to for a bodybuilding, that doesn't interest me. And I just could see me falling into horrendous, you know, problems with my health as a result of doing something like that.
And when you're in that shape, what was your body image and how you kind of felt about your body when you looked in the mirror compared to what it is like now, and how you view that?
Well, it's you know, it's slightly warped, you know, because when you have suffered from body dysmorphic disorder, and the thing is, I never knew it had a medical term. I just have always, you know, unfortunately had a bad relationship with my body. I've always nitpicked at, you know, its weaknesses, its flaws, since my teens, basically. I only actually discovered the term in my 30s, but I have to say, you know, I sometimes look back at those photos, you know, where I was at my leanest and I had a 6-pack and everything. And you know, genetics also come into play. So let's not forget that, you know, some women do naturally look quite lean and naturally have, you know, we're all come in different shapes and sizes. Yes. Let's, you know, be honest, you know. But I do miss, sometimes I look back at those photos and I go, I look good, because yeah, I look like a fit, you know, personal trainer there, and it does look attractive to me. But equally, I know now that health doesn't look like that. To be healthy, it doesn't. Who's to say that? And you know, you and I, Donna, didn't grow up with social media, as in our teens we were looking at those images of, I don't know, female models or whatever in magazines, right? That was where we were exposed to those images, not on Instagram every second of every day now. So I think by the time, obviously, you know, I became a PT, I was just seeing that all day, every day. So I thought, yeah, that's how I have to look. But of course, now, having been on my own health journey, I know that health does certainly not look like that.
No, because really we were probably at our unhealthiest when we were that way.
Yes.
Mentally, and not, you know, mentally and physically, because we had no period. You know, and that's like your main warning sign. So we're going to touch quickly, because I want to go on to your getting your cycle back, and then if you want to touch on a little bit of like your journey, about like pregnancy, because you do have a little girl now.
Yes, I do. Yes, my 9-month-old baby Lana. And yeah, so essentially when I was diagnosed with hypothalamic amenorrhea, and if I don't know if your listeners know, have heard of that term or are aware of it, but I don't know if it's worth just explaining quickly what
Yeah, go
HA
ahead.
is. Yeah. So HA basically refers to a missing period of 3 months or more, and it's of hypothalamic origin. So the hypothalamus is your major control center of the brain, if you like, and it takes sort of inputs from all over your body, including information from your stomach in terms of like how much you've eaten, and information about your stress levels. Amenorrhea refers to the missing period. So hypothalamic amenorrhea is the medical term, and it can be primary or secondary. So primary is if you have never started your periods in your teens. Secondary is when you have when you've obviously had your periods throughout your life, but then there is a stage in your life when you are missing your periods. So essentially, what affects the hypothalamic amenorrhea is in sort of three sort of symptoms or forms of it that occur stress on the body. So when the hypothalamus, which is the controls all your hormones and how they are all working in the body, if it detects stress in some form, and those forms can be overtraining, over-exercising, under-fueling, and stress, either mental or emotional stress. So if it detects a threat, and remember, the brain doesn't actually know the difference between a perceived threat or a real threat, it will start to basically shut down any of the bodily functions that are not essential. It will prioritize the bodily functions that are essential, like keeping us breathing, pumping blood around our body. And because essentially when we're in fight or flight mode, or if your listeners might know, the sympathetic nervous system, so when we're stressed and we need to run away from a lion, hopefully there are no lions in our lives, but when we are running away from a threat, we need to get, well, basically the cortisol and the stress hormones to be able to help us run away from that threat. And what is shut down are, for example, your reproductive hormones, because there is no time and there is no point of making a baby or any of the other bodily functions that are deemed non-essential. And so when I was diagnosed with HA after I came off the pill, I didn't get my periods for 3.5 years. But actually, my periods were never there for many years prior to that. It was just masked by the pill, as I've mentioned before. So
that is crazy, isn't it? So did you come off the pill to originally try to have a baby?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I thought, okay, maybe it will take a year. Some of my friends and some people had said, it takes about a year for the hormones to sort of regulate again. And for your periods to return. So I gave it a year, but something started to sort of hit me, the reality of that something's wrong here, because they're not returning. And I started to do it, basically doing a deep dive into understanding why. And I was only diagnosed with HA, I think, probably a year after I stopped taking the pill. And then it was a long journey, and obviously I won't touch on all the details, because if your listeners want to read my fertility story, it basically documents that 4-year journey to me conceiving my baby. So but it was probably the biggest learning experience in my body and my health that I've ever had in my life. I have learned so much about the relationship with my bodies, with my body, my hormones, my just health now, and for me it was a combination of the three. So it was overtraining, the underfueling, and emotional stress. I targeted each area sort of head on, but it took me a while because I think I was in denial. I was in denial for a very long time that how could something that brings me joy so much, as in the exercise, how can that be the reason why my health is in such a poor state right now? And it was a tough pill. It was a tough pill to swallow for me, because it came to a point where I was delivered a very harsh truth. It was I was having appointments with a nutritional therapist, and she made me do a hormone test. And I don't know if you've ever heard of have you heard of the Dutch test, Donna?
Yeah, I do recommend it to some of my clients as well.
Yeah. So I didn't know much about it at the time, but my nutritional therapist said, she wanted me to take it so we could see where my hormones were at, particularly my cortisol levels. And when she took me through the results, I think it was the news I needed to hear for me to truly start making changes. And she said she had never seen such high cortisol levels in a woman of my age and of my sort of general fitness level and health. And when she was worried, I was worried. And I thought, okay, it's now or never, Yasmine. You are going to have to go all in. And all in is actually a term used in the book that helped me recover from HA, which was a book called No Period Now What by Dr. Nicola Rinaldi. And I'd recommend, actually, if you put it in the show notes, Donna, for anyone who might be going through the same thing. Dr. Rinaldi has conducted the biggest research study into HA in the US. And her all-in recovery plan was what I then at that point followed. And I pretty much followed it down to a T. I had to put on weight, which for me was, with someone with body dysmorphia, was really hard to do. I had to stop all exercise, and I was only doing yoga at that time. And I had to seek therapy for stress management. And having done all of those three things, it took just under, I would say, 4 months, and my periods returned.
Wow. Yeah, I almost feel like emotional. Like, it's just, isn't it?
Genuinely.
Because it's such a grieving process to go from the transition from you as you were as that person to then having to just to give it, go all in and face those things, like, because exercise and nutrition and the whole kind of umbrella over that, where we lived our lives, probably like a decade really from when we started running, has been told that your health is really at risk here. You've got to really rein it in. And then you kind of think, well, I can't go to the gym, I can't do this, I can't do that. What I feel just lost. You feel a bit lost as a person, even though to some other people it might just be exercise, it might just be you've got to eat more, but we're not. You've got to eat a hell of a lot more, and you've seriously got to rest, which is just an abnormal term from someone in body dysmorphia or an orthorexic state.
That's a very important point you made, is that in HA recovery, for some women, it might just be one of those factors that they need to change. So it might be just that they need to eat more, or it might just be that they need to stop all intense exercise. But for me, I knew straight away it was a combination of the three. And you have to, and you're right, it is super hard because you have to face a lot of demons. And but the crazy thing is, why I think I was in denial for so long, even during the running days, I said, I never, and when I would go to the doctors to get the blood test, this was before I was diagnosed with HA, and they would say, when they do with the ultrasound, and they were just like, you're really, you're quite slim and everything, and how much exercise are you doing? And I would almost be proud saying, well, I train this many times a week, and this is how many steps I do a day and everything. And I think now, and I laugh that the reaction from the nurses and the doctors was their jaws would drop down to the floor, because they're like, you need to slow down. You need to. So I got all the warning signs, Donna. I just was like, what are they talking about? I'm fit as a fiddle. I'm a good, healthy weight. I mean, I don't go by BMI because I still believe that's a very outdated method, but I never, categorize myself under having an eating disorder or anything like that. So when they mentioned to me, they said, yeah, well, we see this issue of no periods with like dancers or athletes and those with eating disorders. Donna, I immediately discounted myself out of that. I was like, well, I'm neither of those things, so I must be absolutely fine. The problem was that for years and years and years, and this is why putting on weight for me was a really hard sort of journey for me to go on, was because I was always unknowingly keeping myself at a certain weight on the scales. I didn't realize that when I started putting on weight, you can have a guess actually, Donna, how many kilograms do you think it took for me to actually get my periods back?
In kilograms, I'm going to say 10 or 8 kilograms.
Your jaw will drop to the floor now. It was 3 kilograms, Donna.
Oh, okay.
3 kilograms, yet through overtraining and, just living a very sort of active lifestyle and everything, and I was trying to keep my weight at a certain number, and all my body needed to trigger that period to return was 3 kilograms. So
that is crazy. So I was thinking because I was thinking, maybe a stone, maybe something to it, but yeah, like half a stone, like that's.
And this is how our brains are warped, Donna. Like, you think, in terms of putting on weight. In my head, when I read that in the book, and I was like, oh my goodness, she wants me to turn into an elephant. I'm going to be, twice the size, and that's how warped you get when you have these very disordered ways of thinking about your body. But actually, my body was just screaming for 3 kilograms, and that's when my periods returned.
That is amazing. And now you've got Lana, and she is healthy. And so what one thing, given your journey in regards to how you feel about your body and that kind of thing, a bit of advice would you give to Lana growing up?
I would, and I thought about this for a while, because of course there are many things, right? I mean, given what our conversation has been like over the last hour, you can say that there is certainly a lot that I have to teach her about women's health. But I think what it essentially comes down to is that health never, ever has a certain look. And, from our conversation, we would say what we were influenced by in terms of body image and, I guess, in inverted commas again, body positivity, what we would see in magazines. Now we have young girls and looking at on social media, advertised on social media, and like what you and I have been exposed to, what kind of the fitness physique, the beautiful, perfect fitness physique looks like. But truly, as I have evidently demonstrated, in our conversation, is that when I was at my leanest and, doing that fitness photo shoot, yes, I looked good from the outside, but as I've, very much been open about, my health was deteriorating inside. So I think, if anything, I hope that she will grow up, understanding that message, and to treat her body with kindness, because there is a lot that goes on, behind closed doors, that people, they see someone that they deem to look fit and healthy, but ultimately it doesn't mean that is the picture of health, the full picture of health.
100%. And for the listeners who are still with us listening, is there one bit of kind of healthy guidance or healthy input that they can take forward from this conversation?
Yeah, and I was thinking about this as well, because I could so easily say, as I'm sure you do, on a daily basis to your clients, increase your daily activity, get some fresh air, go for, increase your steps every day, eat a nutritionally wholesome foods. But actually, the one thing I would suggest that all your listeners do is to take a moment to listen to your breathing every day. And I would say that's whether that's once a day, just listen to your breath. How are you breathing? How does your breathing feel? Is it that labored, stressed out breathing from the chest? Do you feel tight? Do you feel almost that sort of labored and strained breathing? Or can you focus on taking some really deep diaphragmatic breaths, really working into the lower lobes of the lungs, and almost really to bring you into more of a parasympathetic state of your nervous system, so your rest and digest phase. I think we are all living in a very, with the pandemic and with just our very stressed out Western society. I think we all need to just take some time out. And so whether you listen to your breathing, if you meditate or you practice mindfulness, just always tune in with your breathing, I would say, once a day.
Couldn't agree more. And even though you're guest number 2, you are the second person who said that.
No way. Really? There we go.
Yeah.
Well, it shows we all need to be doing it then.
Yeah, meditation and breathing as well. So yeah. So where can we all find you?
So you can find me on the usual social media platforms. So Facebook, Say Fitness Personal Training, or on Instagram, Say Fitness PT. I do also have a YouTube channel, and you can follow loads of my free workouts on there. And that's also Say Fitness Personal Training.
Amazing. And in lockdown 1, I actually took part in one of your, and I it's still saved, and I had to be honest, I haven't done it for the last 6 months, but up until 6 months ago, like before I moved, I was still doing it. And
amazing.
It was really tough to begin with in lockdown 1, but I think I'm getting there with those glute lifts.
Oh, amazing. No, you were really good, actually. And I think I don't know if you had tried Pilates before that, Donna, but but you were really good. You were very consistent with that, and I always appreciated that you tuned into my YouTube channel, because sometimes you just put things up there and you don't know who's doing what, but yes, no, I appreciate that you were making good use of it.
Yeah. And that was actually when I was on my little recovery from the loss of menstrual cycle, funny enough.
There we go.
See? I was doing that. There you go. Right, we will leave it there. Thank you so much for everyone listening. Obviously, if you've got any questions, you want to find out more, then I'm going to attach all the links below. So jump over to our socials, send us a little inbox. We'll be happy to help and continue the conversation with you a bit further. Thanks again. Bye.
Thank you, Donna.